Oh, hey everyone. I'm going to do another Affinity demo here. I wanted to kind of show how to make some brushes. I think that's kind of fun. It gives us a chance to play with a couple of tricks. So I'm just going to show you my workflow on that, but I don't, there's lots of other stuff we're going to go through later on or in the future or whenever you're watching this video. But I think it gives you a chance to get an idea of what it adds. So anyway, we're working in Affinity. This is the newest version if anyone is getting up to date. But let's do a couple of things. So I'm building a brush set, so I thought this would be kind of a fun demo. So a couple of ways is I'm always looking for like textures or like ways to like create things out of things without kind of um, reusing other things. So if you are looking at finding any materials, there's a couple of ways to do it. I highly recommend making your own rubbings, doing your own kind of like texture things. But as you learn to make more tools for yourself, I think this is a good opportunity. So I'm a super fan of paintings. That is my background. And so Joseph William Mallard Turner is one of my favorite painters. And so I'm going to use his materials in a digital way. So I'm going to find a painting and I'm going to use the Creative Commons Zero, which really, I'm actually just looking for Wikimedia. I want to find something that is, public domain primarily. So a really good thing to do is to kind of always be aware of materials that are under copyright or whether it will affect you or whose copyright it might be. So I'm just going to choose one of my favorite paintings. Where'd it go? Kripa? There we go. Cool. So here's a painting. It is public domain. It's always important to kind of keep that in mind, but also view terms. It's important to understand kind of the background for when we're taking any materials or reusing them, or even when we're repurposing them. We want to make sure that we're distinguishing ourselves from original art and original work. So as long as we know that we've got some kind of public domain usage, it's good to take an idea. Now, I'm doing an extrapolation of the image itself. So I'm going to find the full image. Which I thought I had, but apparently I don't. I do. Take image. Should be able to download the original, but I'm gonna just check that this is the file. Looks like it, so. I'm just gonna save this for reference. So what we're actually doing is building brushes. And I'm doing this by kind of creating fake texture to fake spaces. It doesn't make a lot of sense until you see what I'm doing here, but it'll give you a chance to get an idea of kind of like how I work and kind of like how you can just play with the materials you have. I think it's important to kind of like not just like learn tools, but like learn how to play with your tools and learn how to like capture different ways of thinking to do design or creativity. So from this image, um, pardon me, from this image, we have lots of information. There's lots of ways to approach it. But I'm not even using this image in the way that you probably think I'm going to. I'm actually going to just capture some of it so that, I'm doing a bit of thinking and I want to kind of like make a brush, but I want to make a brush that isn't anything to do with this really. But I wanted to take something and kind of get like, I want to get shapes. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to find something that's sort of, a coin sized, that gives me materials to work from. This isn't really what I was hoping would work. Oh, there was a good spot there too, so just grab this section. Add it for a minute. So if we make something about that size, I'm going to create a whole new layer, and I'm going to use some built-in brushes, and I'm just going to steal any texture. But what I actually want to do is I'm not actually using this anymore. Um, I'm actually just using this texture snippet that I've found for my own use, and it gives me a chance to like create a shape. So I'm just pulling a shape out of anything. You can pick any picture. You can do your own drawing in this way as well. But this gives us an opportunity to kind of pick some kind of texture. But I just want the shape. Oh, I think I just did that in white. Let's do that in black. Um, so I'm really just trying to kind of create some sort of effect. Oops. So what we wind up with is something scattered, right? I just wanted some damaged information. I've pulled it from a completely different place. It's pretty fun to do that. So that's kind of the first step. My secondary step, though, is I have a template, but I will show you how to create a new file. And so what I'm actually doing is I'll make a custom preset for pixels and 300 DPI at 1000 by 1000. So I'm making a complete square with a transparent background. I think that's really important to kind of just keep in mind. 300 DPI is probably what I work in the most, primarily because of print, for many other reasons out there off in space. But I'm just creating this new document, and within it, it's got nothing. It's just literally empty. This is when we talk about transparent backgrounds. So now I'm going to steal or copy this material I've made out of the image, right? So I'm not quite doing anything but just getting the structure in place of what I've got. So I've just copied this layer right over. I've brought it over. Now there's a couple ways to think about using this. Now it's probably not big enough all on its own. So as a brush is usually designed in this square format, it's going to wind up taking on the shape that it has. So there's a few things you can do with it. You can repeat it in a couple of ways, or you can damage it in different ways as well. So I'm going to create a brush that is based around intensity. So I'm going to do that by taking the original and kind of keeping it in place. And I'm going to add some changes to our two other ones. So I'm going to remove these two for a moment, and I'm actually going to go use my lasso tool. If it will load. No, there we go. That took a bit. So freehand selection tool. Sorry, it's called lasso in Adobe. So I'm just going to take part of this out from this middle layer, and I'm just straight up removing it. Or another way, you can use an eraser at a lower percentage. It's like 40% or something, and you can lighten some of that image. Now this will make a little more sense when we see the brush, but that's given some different values or contrast that's going to show up in the brush. So that's one layer that's there, and this other layer I'm going to do something very similar with, except for I'm going to rotate it. You can also do it with the handle. So again, you can rotate things with your move function as well. But what I want to also do is shrink it right down. And I think I'm going to make it square. And so, let's kind of stretch it out. So let's just shrink it down this way. And then I'm going to realign it to the whole brush. So it's all going to be one brush. And so you can leave it in blacks, but I think a really important kind of trick for some of this is to also use something like layer effect and do some actual color overlay. And so a better way to get values when you're making a PMG for a brush is to actually go in and just create some different intensities using colors. So it's probably a good way to kind of identify which layer is one, but it also gives you a chance to have something lighter, something darker or more strong. All right, so I'm going to do a red. I'm going to do probably a blue, darker blue, darker blue, and then let's go with the main back layer, and I'm gonna leave it maybe black. So let me see what I can do. Oh, I think this one's not. I need to erase some of this. I've got way too much. Oops. too much. That's a little spinny, so it's going to create an eye kind of look, and I don't want that. So let me go back. I think I'll just erase some stuff out of it. I think that'll be the best way to get rid of, because I want my black. I want my black in there. That background. So there's a lot going on here. Now, it's not going to make a lot of sense until you see the brush in action, but once we've got kind of this body that we can work with, it gives us a chance to move with that. So I'm going to change, I think this layer is probably best if it's maybe like gold. Yeah, I think that's going to give us lots of fun. So you can leave this brush alone, but when you export, it'll merge it. So before we worry too much about that detail, I'm going to save this brush before I lose it. I've done all this work. I've added all these layers. I've made these changes. I want to make sure I'm saving these brushes. I date everything so that I know when I made it, even if I don't know what I made sometimes. But at least when I'm going through my files, in terms of that, I get an idea of what I've been building. So I'm just going to call this a brush block or something like that. I need to get around to making something more square, but anyway, so that's, I'm going to save, so I'm actually saving the working file. I probably don't need to keep it after this, but I'm going to anyway. And then what I really need to do now that I've got this image in place, I'm going to go and export. And I'm going to export it as a PNG, and I'm just going to use the standard settings. I'm going to leave it at 1000, right? Lock the aspect ratio, and always check, always check if your transparency is active. So you can do the whole document also, and keep in mind what you're looking for. So the whole document, the selection area, or the section only. I am doing the entire document. I want the entire blank space. I need that negative space to work within the brush, and this will give us a chance to kind of review how that works. So let me just see. And then, so there's lots of choices here, and it's good to practice understanding which each one's purpose does. But overall, we're just creating a transparent PNG image with texture. That's the end result here. So that's kind of the first thing here. And I'm going to go to not that project, but my sketchbook. Goodness, where have I saved that? Sketchbook. Brush starters. And I'm going to call this brush starter 2. And I'm going to subname it block because I think that's what it's going to wind up looking like. So, cool. That is very boring. So I'm going to go back to, I'm not going to use this tool. I'm going to go back to just this template, general template. I don't need this anymore. So I'm just gonna discard it. I usually drag things under my background, so it's just out of the way. So I've just got a plain pixel here, but what we're gonna do now is make the brush. So when you're in brushes, you can be in any of your palettes. I usually would recommend doing create a new category, create a category with your own name, and kind of like just make sure you've got the right materials that you want there. And so the next step here, though, is that we want to create a brush. So to create a brush, there's lots of ways and there's lots of different formats. So I definitely recommend Googling it for Affinity tools, but I'm going to create a new intensity brush. So the reason that I did those colors will make a little more sense in this. So I'm going to go to my working file. As you see, I've got 2 working files. This one wound up being the eye set, and this one is brand new, and this is going to be the block set. I think that I'm going to title it. So now I've created a brush. So that part's fun. I'm just going to switch back to white here. So by default, it's gone to 64 pixels in size. I try to aim for them to, if it's going to be a pencil, I try to aim for about 5. And if it's going to be like a bigger brush, I usually do about 150 or 250 as the preset. So without doing anything, the default setting, it's going to give you this brush effect. It's pretty jagged. There's a lot you can do with this kind of pattern. This definitely has a fabric feel that we've created from those layers, but I'm going to mess around with the dynamics and the texture. I think that'll give us a much better opportunity. So texture is really important for some of these things. So I'm going to go find a texture, but I don't currently have one. So I'm going to go grab one from, all right, I can't go off screen. I'm going to grab one from another free source that I highly recommend using is Texture Labs. If I can get it too low, there we go. Texture Labs. So I'm a big fan of paper. They have so many great papers in here, but I'm gonna probably do something like brick. But there's lots of paper here in Texture Labs. Again, check their details, but their tools are meant for common use. So it's certainly a good opportunity to find what you need when you're working with materials, especially when you do a lot of grungy or decayed work. You kind of want to get that feel. So I'm going to do something extreme. I think I'm going to grab this one. I think that's probably going to be the best one. I probably don't need the extra large size. So that'll download for us. I'm going to go grab that out of my folder. And for our texture, I'm going to set that texture by, I'm going to actually have that over here for my downloads, and then I can do this. So it's going to give me this background to it. So now you can see it's starting to shape a little differently. And so now there's more body happening, and so it's not as lined. But when you start drawing, you're gonna start. Oh, I'm getting some lag here. You're gonna get started. See the effect that it takes overall. So you can do more scale. You can make it bigger or smaller. You can either set it to final or nozzle. Probably nozzle's one of the better features to use. I can get this to clear. I have lag, so it's probably unhappy with me. There we go. There. Let's make this a bit bigger. I think 150 was too small for this brush. So anyway, now we can start to see, yeah, we're getting lots more fun, right? Especially if you're, doing animal skin or something like that. This is definitely going to be a very useful brush. So yes, assistant, I realize you've made a new layer. So, all kinds of different settings to mess around with. I highly recommend when you're making a brush to like make a cool thing. If you really like it, save it, do a copy. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then the next thing you can do, I'm going to use an old one, but I'm going to add a texture if I can. I don't know if I have a bitmap, so this might fail. I think this is going to crash my program, so I'm not going to do it right now. But that's something you can do as well, and you can add around. So it kind of will let you do blending. So this gives you, as you can see, you kind of get this bullet eye. I think I'd probably be better with a different setting. If it will let me change it. I like erasing a lot. I like decay. I like the destruction of things. So with that round and that effect, I'm getting less, right? And I think that's too much of a change. So I think I'm gonna adjust to behind the current nozzle. And I think that's still not gonna be enough. So there's different ways to mess around with that. I absolutely don't like the result this is giving me. I like the original one. So I'm going to get rid of this sub brush, but I thought it was fun to kind of play with that just to show you in the demo. There's a lot more settings. I highly recommend messing around with them. Looking at your existing brushes is a really great way to kind of learn what settings you've got in place. But there's lots of things that you can do, especially if there are colors. But I really like changing saturation probably. And it's good to set it to random, but you're going to start seeing different results. Oops. There, just do a new layer here. And then you start seeing different patterns, and you can kind of like, don't overdo it, but like learn which each one does. Since I don't have any colors happening right now, I'm not going to see the change, but let's go and choose turquoise. And then you start to see the color jitter, right? I can set that back to 0, and I shouldn't get any. Oops. I shouldn't get any of that. Yeah, so I'm back to my regular. So if you're messing around with hues, you're gonna get that rainbow kind of feel. If you're messing around with saturation, that's definitely what's gonna take you from one level to another, right? So I think there's just different ways to think about that. Once you start incorporating color, I've mostly been working in black and white because that's the best place to kind of start. So I like a little bit of hue. So sometimes that's fun. Sometimes you're like, why is this color not working? It's probably your hue jitter. So it's always a good thing to look at. Luminosity, definitely worth messing with your work. It helps with darks and lights. So there's a couple of fun tricks. I'm starting to run out of space here, so I'll just clear that out. Cool. So there's a lot of other tricks here. I'm probably going to set my size to 500. I'm going to reduce this accumulation a bit. Let's just make a new letter here. Right, and then you're starting to see, oh yeah, there's some fun stuff you can do. I've got this texture out of this brush I've made technically from nothing. Spacing is really helpful. I really like working with spacing too. It's set to 15, but you can jump to like 104, and then it starts doing all kinds of pattern. Or jump down to like 5, and keep it really tight, right? And then it's going to get more intense. I think it was really good where it was before, where it was at like a 15. I think 15 was the default. So 15 is a good tight brush, especially if you're working on certain layers. And also you can change rotation, so it'll program it to or not. It'll program it to kind of do some adjustments as you're drawing. So let's wipe that out. Bit of lag, so. Anyway, so I think the next thing that's really handy to learn, as I was saying, if you really like the settings, go back to edit your brush. So there's a few things to do. If you really want to start messing around with it, definitely duplicate the brush, right? Go to that function, create another brush, keep the original, whatever you decide to do with it. So here's a good one. I'm going to rename this to align more with what we're doing, with what it should be titled. So it's probably number 4. You always want to name your brush what it's like, so it helps people have a feeling, or give it a cool name. That's all good to me. So block. I think that's what it's going to want to be in. So anyway, those are some things to learn. Lots more to mess around with, but I hope that gives you an idea of kind of how to play and create your own brushes. Follow me for more information as I kind of practice through this here. But it gives us a chance to kind of experience like how we can just take old materials and then reuse them, reutilize them, re-envision them, and then we can make our own tools. And I think that's a really important thing to do. And just a bit of a reminder that I'm in Affinity here. I've spent most of my time over in the pixel profile. I haven't done any layout here. I haven't done any vector, which is really important for doing word mark or logos. So I'm staying mostly out of there. And all of this was done in like that pixel profile, so which would be considered Affinity Photo or Photoshop or any of those pixel design layers. You can do brushes and can do them in vector. I will do that some other time, but I'm definitely not doing that now. Anyway, thanks for checking it out. Catch you later. Bye.